Forgiveness is a divine gift, but consequences are an earthly reality. When the prophet Nathan confronted King David in the throne room of Jerusalem, the king finally broke. He wept, he fasted, and he threw himself upon the mercy of the Almighty. And the Lord, in his infinite grace, put away David's sin. The king would not die. But the pardon of heaven did not erase the prophecy of the earth. Nathan had spoken a chilling, irreversible decree over the house of cedar. The sword shall never depart from your house. It was a sentence that would haunt David for the rest of his days. The secret sins of the father were about to become the public tragedies of the sons. The kingdom of Israel remained strong on the outside, its borders secure and its enemies subdued. But inside the royal palace, a silent rot was quietly spreading through the family tree. David had built an empire, but he had failed to build a functional home. He had multiple wives, multiple ambitions, and a heavy crown that left little room for the daily duties of a father. He loved his children, but his own moral failure with Bathsheba had paralyzed his ability to lead them with moral authority. How could a man who took another man's wife discipline his sons for their own lusts? How could a man who ordered the murder of a loyal soldier condemn the violence in his own hallways? A heavy, unspoken shadow settled over the golden city of Zion. The shepherd king had lost his moral voice, and into that dangerous, silent vacuum stepped a generation of princes who had inherited all of their father's passions, but absolutely none of his restraint. The storm was no longer gathering on the borders of the Philistines. It was gathering at the family dinner table. The first crack in the royal foundation comes from David's firstborn son, Amnon. Amnon is the heir apparent, a privileged prince who looks at the world and believes he is entitled to whatever his eyes desire. And his eyes have fallen upon Tamar, his own half-sister. She is a princess of Israel, beautiful and innocent, wearing the ornate, many-colored robe of royal virginity. Amnon's desire for her is not love. It becomes a sickness, a dark obsession that consumes his waking hours. Guided by the wicked counsel of a cunning cousin, Amnon feigns a severe illness, drawing his father, the king, to his bedside. He weakly asks for Tamar to come and bake bread for him, to nurse him back to health. David, ever the doting and completely blind father, agrees without a second thought. He sends the innocent sheep straight into the jaws of the wolf. When Tamar arrives in the quiet, secluded chambers of her half-brother, the trap springs shut. Amnon overpowers her. He takes what is not his, recreating the devastating sin of his father, but twisting it into an even darker, more unspeakable tragedy. And then, in the cruelest turn of all, the moment his dark desire is fulfilled, Amnon's lust instantly turns into a violent, sudden hatred. He orders his servants to throw the weeping princess out into the street and bolt the heavy wooden door behind her. Tamar tears her beautiful royal robes, puts ashes on her head, and walks through the streets of Jerusalem crying aloud. A public, walking testament to the rot inside the palace. When King David hears of this atrocity, the scripture says he was very angry. But he does absolutely nothing. He issues no decree. He enacts no justice. He is paralyzed by the ghost of Bathsheba, unable to punish his son for the very crime he himself committed. And in that silent failure of justice, a terrible seed of revenge is planted in the cold heart of Tamar's full brother, a young prince named Absalom. Absalom is a man of an entirely different breed. He is famously handsome, possessing a flawless physical appearance from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head, with thick, heavy hair that is the envy of the entire kingdom. But beneath that perfect royal exterior lies a heart of pure, cold-blooded iron. Where Amnon was driven by hot, reckless passion, Absalom is driven by icy, calculating patience. When he finds his sister Tamar desolate and broken, he takes her into his house and tells her to hold her peace. He does not yell. He does not confront Amnon in the courtyard. He does not demand a furious audience with his father. Instead, he waits. For 2 full years, Absalom speaks not a single word to Amnon, neither good nor bad. He lets the king believe the scandal has blown over. He lets Amnon believe he is completely safe. Then, at the height of the spring sheep shearing festival, a time of wine, loud feasting, and vulnerability, Absalom invites all the king's sons to a great banquet in the countryside. Amnon, lulled into a false sense of security, attends the celebration. When the wine is flowing heavily and Amnon's heart is merry, Absalom gives a chilling, prearranged signal to his hidden servants. Strike Amnon. In an instant, the joyous banquet turns into a bloody slaughter. The heir to the throne is murdered at the dinner table. The other princes flee in absolute terror, leaping onto their mules frantically and riding back to Jerusalem, bringing with them the horrifying news that the sword of Nathan's prophecy has officially struck the royal house. Absalom does not stay to face his father's wrath. Having avenged his sister and eliminated his chief rival to the throne, he flees the country, seeking asylum across the border. The family of David is now shattered. One son is dead, another is a murderer in exile, and a daughter's life is ruined. King David mourns for his sons every single day, weeping over the bitter wreckage of a family he was too paralyzed to protect. 3 long years pass before David, yielding to the manipulation of his weary General Joab, allows Absalom to return to Jerusalem. But it is a deeply fractured reconciliation. The king allows his treacherous son back into the city limits, but completely refuses to see his face. For 2 more years, Absalom lives in Jerusalem, a prince in exile within his own capital, brooding, alienated, and harboring a growing, incredibly dangerous ambition. If his father will not act like a king, Absalom decides he will simply take the crown for himself. Absalom begins a masterful, psychological campaign of treason. He procures a magnificent chariot and horses, with 50 armed men to run before him in the streets, creating an image of undeniable royal power. He rises early every morning and stands by the main gate of the city, the very place where legal disputes are settled. When any man from the 12 tribes of Israel comes seeking justice from King David, Absalom intercepts him. He listens to their grievances with a warm, sympathetic ear. He shakes his head in mock sorrow and says, "Look, your claims are good and right, but there is no man deputed by the king to hear you." Then, he delivers the lethal, whispered promise. "Oh, that I were made judge in the land. I would give you justice." When men bow to him, he reaches out, takes hold of them, and kisses them as brothers. It is a brilliant, devastating political maneuver. He does not use a sword to attack his father. He uses a smile. Slowly, meticulously, day by day, the scripture says Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. After 4 years of this silent, smiling coup, the trap is finally set. Absalom asks permission to go to Hebron, the very ancient city where David was first crowned king. There, the handsome prince sounds the trumpets and brazenly declares himself the new king of Israel. The rebellion explodes like wildfire, and the conspiracy grows terrifyingly strong. The people who once sang "David has slain his tens of thousands" are now eagerly flocking to the banner of his treacherous son. A breathless, dust-covered messenger arrives at the palace in Jerusalem with words that strike David like a physical blow to the chest. The hearts of the men of Israel have gone after Absalom. the king is suddenly faced with the ultimate nightmare. His own son is marching on the city gates with an army of his own people. David, the legendary, battle-hardened warrior who never once backed down from a fight in his youth, makes a sudden, heartbreaking decision. He will not turn Jerusalem into a slaughterhouse. He will not wage a bloody civil war against his own flesh and blood in the city of God. He turns to his terrified servants and commands, "Arise and let us flee, or else there will be no escape for us from Absalom." The royal evacuation is swift, panicked, and chaotic. The king leaves behind 10 concubines to keep the house, and with his most loyal bodyguard, he walks out of the gates of the beautiful city he built. The scene that follows is one of the most profoundly sorrowful in all of biblical history. King David crosses the Kidron Valley, the very same path a future eternal king will walk on his way to the cross. The whole countryside weeps aloud as the aging king passes by. David begins the steep, exhausting ascent up the Mount of Olives. He is not wearing his shining royal armor. He is not wearing his golden crown. He walks barefoot in the dirt, his head covered in deep mourning, weeping openly as he climbs the rocky path. The loyal people with him also cover their heads, weeping bitterly as they follow their fallen leader into the unforgiving wilderness. The man who slew Goliath, the man who brought the ark to Zion with shouts of joy, is once again a fugitive, chased into the desert not by a mad, jealous king, but by the devastating, unavoidable harvest of his own sins. The sword has not departed. The golden throne is empty, and the shepherd king must now walk through the darkest valley he has ever known, trusting only in the severe mercy of a God who heavily corrects those he loves.